Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever in the world you are joining us from, it's a special occasion today. It's Singles Day, so happy Singles Day, but it's also a special occasion for a bigger reason. There's two things that are fantastic and very special about cheese. First, and equal to the second, they're both as important. Tea and cheese have a beautiful marriage. Second, and equal to the first, is Betty Koster. Now that's why we are excited. We've got the lights on, not because of Christmas, but because we have today on our virtual session, we have Betty Koster. So Betty is a legend, not only for her love for cheese, but for her passion. And you're going to see that in a minute. But today we're going to be looking at a few different teas. And why tea and cheese at all? Tea has a beautiful, beautiful characteristic. It is the combination of heaven, earth, and finally the tea maker. So it is what nature has done to the enzymes, to the sap within the leaf, that is relayed through a combination of climatic influences, temperature, and all those beautiful things that form terroir, including soil. And finally, what the tea maker does is not make tea, but make what nature has made in the leaf into tea. So from that magical truth that it is nature that crafts tea, comes a whole host of teas: light, bright, strong, woody, intense, earthy, etc. Now, these are fantastic because they go amazingly well with food. Whether you're having a steak, I don't recommend a steak because we are going plant-based, but I do recommend cheese. Whether you're having a drink or whether you're having any type of occasion, a salad, you have a beautiful symbiosis between the tea and the ingredients in a salad, but it's the same for cheese. And today we're talking cheese, and the lights are for Betty, but they're also partly for Christmas. So we're going to be talking Christmas cheese. And with that, I would like to introduce our wonderful Betty Koster. And with the introduction, I do have a question for you. Have you ever tried pairing tea and cheese? The principle of it, while you're answering the question, so they're up on the screen, the principle of it is that tea has a sensory, that is a flavor relationship with the cheese. It brings out flavors, etc. But there's also a functional relationship. And I'm not going to talk more about that because I know Betty is going to. The functional relationship is related to the antioxidants in tea. And Betty is going to tell you more about how that works in practice. Fantastic. Most of you, 57%, do, and you love tea and cheese pairing. 41% don't, but you would like to give it a try. And you have 2% not a big fan. By the end of this, you will be. So maybe Naomi or Gary, if you show the results, and then we will, there you go. Those are the results. And now we would like to see Betty. So Betty Koster is the wonderful lady who is known as the Queen of Cheese. She is Queen of Cheese in Europe, based in the Netherlands, in this most amazing little Lamuse, a beautiful cheese shop, passion center, but she's also the Queen of Cheese at the School of Tea. So she's been here many times and she has inspired us with her knowledge. Betty, welcome.
Thank you, Dilhan. Good to be here. Thank you, all of you, for attending this School of Tea and Cheese today. But yeah, tea and cheese is really old. It's something which originated in Switzerland because people ate a lot of cheese fondue over there, as you might know, and that can be rather heavy on the stomach. Cheese fondue, cooked cheese is always not so light digestible, so they drank tea to make it more lightly digestible. And they didn't mind so much about the flavor of the tea. They just drank a black tea, but it was more functional. The last 10 years, we've been doing a lot about food experiences with people. We work together with a lot of restaurants, and just serving food is not enough. You want the total experience with the drink and the food together, and see how it goes. You want to learn something. It's like a beautiful experience which makes both things better. So the food can be enhanced by the flavors of the drink and the other way around. And that's how we started to pair tea and cheese. I remember very well that Robert Schinkel, you all might know him as a mixologist, came to me and said, "Listen, Betty, I'm the tea sommelier of Dilmah and I would like to pair tea and cheese with you." And I didn't do it before that. That's like 13 years ago right now. I didn't do it before that. That was my first experience. And it was such an amazing experience. We've been drinking, I think, about 4 liters of tea. We've been doing it for 5 hours. Imagine that it was winter time. And when we finished, Robert had to go home. And the snow piled up outside, and it took him normally a drive of 20 minutes, took him 2.5 hours to get home. But he was also so excited about all the experience we had. We got carried away. We didn't write it down at that time, so we had to do it over and over again because I'd like to make my notes. You can't remember them all because there's so many perfect combinations. Now, for the people who say, I don't mind that much, I don't care that much, there are a lot of things you got to keep in mind. So the brewing of the tea is very, very important. I guess you all know how to brew a good cup of tea when you attended primary schools of tea. But for tea and cheese, you need the exact weight of tea leaves matched with the right water. So we use no mineral water. We use spa, as you might know in the Netherlands, or filtered water. And we use 14 grams of tea leaves on 1 liter of water. And then you brew the tea, and normally you might say 3 minutes for me is enough because the flavors are there. But if you pair it with cheese, you do have to have a real good flavor of the tea. So for me, it's always 1 or 2 minutes longer. I taste it. I don't want any bitterness, so it shouldn't be, because when the tea cools down during the pairing, you don't want, there might be a slight bitterness if it's brewed too strongly. So we don't want that. So I taste it in between. And then, as you might see, these 3 glasses are not wines or cognacs or whatever. No, they are teas in a wine glass. That is also an experience, because if you serve tea in a cup, to us in the Netherlands, it's the end of the meal. You get the check because you want coffee or tea, and you get the check, and then it's the end of the meal. While you're having cheese, you want to be treated the same way as people who buy a good glass of wine, of port wine to go with the cheese. So you get this tea in your wine glass, and you start looking at the colors suddenly, which you never do when it's in a cup. And you start maybe waltzing a little bit and smell, and that's where the experience starts. So please try and find a good glass where you can serve the tea in. Don't bother too much whether the tea is too hot for the glass, because after brewing, pouring it in the glass, it's usually great for the glasses. I never broke one, knock on wood though. And then you start to really pair the tea and cheeses. Now that is the same as doing it with wine or whiskey or whatever. There's only one very important thing. The tea is warm. So the tea warms your mouth. And tea has also a very cleaning effect, as you might know, especially if you have a green tea or a Moroccan mint in this case. And the cleaning effect is very important because the cheese which you will taste after the first sip of tea will come into a warm, clean environment, and that's when it lays off all its layers of flavors. So you eat the cheese, you have the flavors of the tea still a little bit in the back, you eat the cheese, and then you sip again on the tea, because that's the third experience. And then the cheese will melt down together with the tea, and you feel it gliding through as it's meant to be. So there's no fight, there's no struggle of a warm cheese fighting to a cold white wine, or no, it's all very smooth, and you'll sense that it's so easy that you have to keep in mind not to eat and drink too much because you're tempted, I bet. And then the flavors of the tea should match with the flavors of the cheese. And that is important. So that's where I come in. We don't do nothing else than pairing. And you look, I always look, as I explain it, for bridges. I don't want extremes to fight together. I want a bridge between the cheese and the tea. Now, there is already a big bridge between tea and cheese because, as Dilhan was talking about just, terroir is as important for tea as it is for cheese. Where the animal is grazing, whether it's a cow, sheep, or a goat, is majorly important to the flavor of the cheese. For example, we have a small country, the Netherlands. It's not so big. Within 3 hours, you can be from one side to the other side by car. But we have so many different terroirs, which means that the cows are mainly grazing in the west and in the northwest of our country, where it's a lot of clay, river clay or sea clay. And even that, river clay or sea clay, means a different profile in the cheese. Where sea clay is salted and luscious and brings really nutritious grass with a lot of flavor, the rivers are more sweet. So there's also a breed of cows which is more breeded at the rivers than up north where the clay is from the sea. And that's only clay. We have sand, we have peat, we have dunes where the sheep are grazing in the aisles. So imagine in our country, in our small country, so many layers of terroirs. What else in the world can we find out? Well, I'll bring you today 4 examples, and the first tea we're starting with is Italian almond. Italian almond is a beautiful black tea with aromatized with the Italian almond, and this is really for us a holiday tea because it brings out this Christmas feeling because of the marzipan, the almond paste, you know, what we use in our Christmas puddings or cookies or whatever. So brewing the tea already brings you in another mood. Now, almond is known for a slight bitterness, so you don't want to express the bitterness of the almond in the tea. So we're looking for something creamy to smoothen that bitterness. And what else than a beautiful Dutch young Gouda, which is creamy, rich, velvety in structure, and buttery and grassy in notes, what you taste. So you sip the tea, you then have a small piece of this beautiful young Gouda, and don't mind where it comes from, the north or the south. Be happy you found it. And then you'll see that it all melts together and brings out this beautiful, the cheese enhances the beautiful notes of the almonds, and it's matches like easy. You could do breakfast with this even. We serve it as a platter after dinner, but you could do breakfast with this one. So here we have the cream reaching out to the almond. The second cheese we match with the Italian almond tea is Manchego. Now, Manchego is a Spanish cheese made from sheep milk, and the sheep producing this milk should be from the Manchega breed. So that's a breed which is extremely known in the northern of Spain. And in the old days, when the milk had been curded and the curd had been cut, they put the curd into the shapes, into the forms, and for this cheese they had a chino, and a chino is like a straw tire which goes around the cheese and prints the straw print in the rind of the cheese. So that's very particularly for the manchego. So that's how you recognize a good manchego. Now, there's two kinds of manchego. You have the artisanal manchego, which is raw milk and has an own AOP or PDO, as we call it. And you have the pasteurized manchego. There's a big difference in those two, but never mind. Even the pasteurized manchego will take you to Christmas, because here you will find this marzipan, this almond paste flavor, which brings you to the holiday mood. Incredibly exciting, because normally aromatized teas are not that easy to pair, but this one is really good. You could also try a very soft goat milk cheese if you can find one. For the second tea, which is Moroccan mint, which is actually not a tea, but more like oh, no, I forgot the name. Anyway, it's the Moroccan mint leaves, which are incredibly flavorful, and that's the best mint you can get. And we even have people who don't like the fresh mint tea but do want the Moroccan mint tea. Now, mint has something else than all the other teas. Actually, it has a kind of almost paralyzing effect on your palate. It cleans, but it also numbs it a little bit. Now, this is not the case with a Moroccan mint. This is so subtle, so that might be because there's green tea in it as well. So I started to pair Moroccan mint. It surprised me all over, because I started with a young Gouda, which was good, really good. You can do that. So you can go back to the young Gouda. Then I got to an older Gouda. Wow. Here, the milky notes of the cheese were really enhanced, while it's an old cheese, because of the clear, pure mint flavor. But I also tried the Gorgonzola Dolce, which was also good with Moroccan mint. And then I got excited and got carried away behind my counter and started to pair Moroccan mint even with Stilton and Brie. And it's amazing what this green tea with Moroccan mint can do for you. And you will also notice that the lightness of the tea is also the lightness of eating and drinking it. And that's, for me, very important, because it's the end of the meal. Stuff you want to be enhanced by flavors, but not by big dishes with heavy food and drinks. Now, the last one of my favorite, is Earl Grey. Earl Grey, as you might know, is aromatized with the bergamot, and that is like a citrusy fruit. And citrusy notes and cheese are also very, very difficult to pair. So I had to really search for a lot of cheeses to pair with the Earl Grey. But amazingly, the Gorgonzola Dolce, which is not an easy cheese. Dolce means sweet in Italian, and it means it's made from the sweet, rich milk. Don't imagine it is a sweet cheese. It has sweet notes, but it's more earthy, and it has a freshness in it. The blue molds are injected in the cheese. Normally, we put the blue mold in the milk and it goes along, and after a little bit of pressing, you pierce the cheese in order to get oxygen in the cheese so the mold can develop. But with Gorgonzola Dolce, it's impossible. Those are wheels of 12 kilo, and if you pierce it, it's so soft within, it'll close right away after you draw out your needle. So what we do is we inject the blue mold, slowly draw out the needle, and then the mold has to find its way to find some oxygen in the cheese. That's hard, so you will never find a Gorgonzola Dolce which is really blue. You'll see some gray, maybe some pinkish coloring in the cheese, but the richness of this cheese is amazing. And how amazing that Earl Grey can match these, not even match it, but brings out a third flavor which I encountered, namely the white chocolate. As you know, white chocolate, it is buttery and velvety. And together with the Earl Grey and the Gorgonzola Dolce, I got this flavor of white chocolate. So if you're up for it, you might even take a piece of white chocolate and pair it together with the three of them, because that's another way of pairing tea, cheese, and chocolate. Maybe one day we'll do that too. But for now, this gorgonzola is like the biggest surprise because it matched. Actually, it matched all three of them, and I hope yours is as good as mine because, of course, there's a lot of producers for gorgonzola dolce, but this is, this is a delight. So, as you might have noticed, if you have the teas and the cheese and you have been tasting them, you're still up for more. And that is what we want. Because in France, if you take cheese after dinner, it is because it is so good for your digestion and you are up for another dessert afterwards. So, a lot of people take it as a dessert, but it also makes room for a dessert. And with desserts, you can go with tea again, of course. So it's not only for the people who never drink alcohol, but it's also for the people who do drink alcohol during the meal, but at cheese time, so at the third or the fourth course, they've had enough. And this tea just brings your body to ease. It's really a kind of meltdown minute for your body. Really, really good to me. Do try.
Hi, Betty. We were enjoying that beautiful explanation so much that I think we all sort of were thinking and romanticizing about tea and cheese. Thank you. Brilliant. Brilliant. It's always beautiful. And so before we move on, we have a question. Would you try our festive cheese and tea pairings this holiday season? Yes, no, maybe. Easy questions. So basically we want to know, did you like it? Do you think it's practical? Betty, I think you've got 10 out of 10. Actually, maybe even 15 out of 10. No, even
Thank
more.
you.
Right. Because you've got 0 no's. You've got, 80%, 79%, yes, I can't wait. And you've got 21% maybe. That's probably those of us in Sri Lanka who don't have access to those amazing cheeses that you had. But I have a follow-up question because I want to also ask our colleagues, which combination would you try first? And the reason I'm asking that is so that we can know. So we had a few: Italian almond with manchego, Italian almond with the young Gouda, the Moroccan mint with matured old Gouda, the Earl Grey with Gorgonzola Dolce, all 4 or none of the above. Brilliant. So, wow. Okay, so pretty much equal. You did a brilliant job, and lots of people saying they'll try all 4. And those are the results. Wonderful. So now, the teas that Betty presented, you can, if you haven't got them, you can pick them up at the School of Tea Recommend section of the Dilmah online shop. We always get questions following up saying, look, where do I get this tea? That's the answer. But also, we have a little secret. Betty has put down lots of her amazing knowledge in this book of cheese and tea. So it's for members only, free. Download it, join the club, download it, and we'd love to hear back from you on what you've tried and what you've enjoyed. But most importantly, if you can't get a hold of those cheeses, go to Lamuse. It's worth flying in, believe me. I mean, we would do it. The minute they open the borders, we need to get out, you fly into Amsterdam, Schiphol, and she's just close by. And of course, you've got to meet the mysterious Martin, the wind beneath her wings. So if you follow episodes 10 to 12, you win your module 4 badge. So that's it up there. And with that, thank you. tea-inspired friends and colleagues, we are going to see you one more time before Christmas. Are we meeting before Christmas? Yes, yeah, we are meeting before Christmas. So I look forward to that. Betty, thank you. You are always amazing, always inspiring, always passionate. And our love to Martin and yourself and the family. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and you too. And thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe.